the meeting to order with a roll call. Heather.
Here.
Dan.
Here.
Greg.
Here.
Samir.
Here.
Skip.
Yep.
Angelina.
Here.
Kyle.
Here.
Victoria is here. Okay, we are called to order. On tonight's agenda, we are going to be covering the FY27 budget for two of our departments, both the Grafton Recreation budget, as well as we have visitors from Blackstone Valley Technical High School here. So following the agenda, let's go ahead and start with the FY27 Recreation Department budget. If Adam wants to come on down.
Everybody.
Good evening.
Good
How are
evening.
you?
Good.
How was your half marathon?
Slow, but good.
Matters is you finished.
Yeah, I finished. It was a pretty wild experience. It was in New York City, and it was really cool to just I basically gave myself a free tour of New York City and just had to run through it, so it was pretty cool.
Not bad.
It was a lot of people, over 30,000 people were in the race, so it was very overwhelming.
Wow.
But it was fun. I did it, survived. My legs are still hurt, but we'll get there. Lots of stretching, lots of foam rolling the past couple days, but it was fun.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And welcome home.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. All right, so we'll just go through your budget here. I think page 18 of our packet has your line by lines highlighted, which is very convenient. But we like to go through particularly the changes, the differences, year over year, and your notes to those lines.
All right, so just a couple of the big things, and if you don't mind, if you indulge me, just before we talk budget numbers, if I could talk a little about impact numbers, if that's okay.
Love to hear it.
Okay, great. So I've been here 3 years now, so I've been able to kind of see a significant change in the positive in the past couple of years. But I thought I'd compare fiscal 24's impact versus fiscal 25. Comparatively, we're offering 14% more special events in town. 2025 fiscal year over 2024. We're offering 235% more activities in town. Excuse me. We're offering 30% more, 30% more people are attending our events. We've been very intentional about tracking that a little bit more now. We have 50% more program participants, registrations in our programs. We've had a 49% increase in our beach season and day passes that were sold. And we've increased our enrollment in our summer days program, which is our summer camp style program, by 133%. So when I started, we had about 50 kids a week in our program. Now we're hovering about 140.
Whoa.
I feel like I've hit the ground running, and I feel like we finally really got into a groove. We got a really great team up there, and we're looking forward to continuing to push the needle in 26 and 27. So that was some impact numbers before I get into the other numbers. So the biggest changes for fiscal 27 versus fiscal 26, and I apologize, the notes that were in the packet were incomplete. Craziness of half marathon training and stuff, I just didn't get done, so I'll kind of explain some of the stuff. So the biggest change, obviously, is right now the reduction budget does include the beach staff salaries being removed, so you'll see a $104,000 decrease there. For record, just so people know, if the override does not pass and we are on a reduction budget, the revolving account that the recreation department has will absorb those costs. Just for this season, we've crunched some numbers, and there probably will be some service changes, so less in days, less staff. One can only speculate, but we have some plans in place if, after a vote comes in and we know if it's a yay or a nay, what the next steps are. We'll be sure, of course, to communicate those changes as soon as we hear them. So that's number one. Number two, the other big changes monetarily, I would say, the biggest swing, I guess, would be the assistant line, which has an increase of about $12,000. That change is one, obviously, the traditional step increases for our staff members. And I believe the projections for fiscal 26 were adjusted incorrectly. We had an admin in our department who was at the highest level of her step range. She left us, and we hired someone at the lowest step, and I think When we calculated the numbers, we were able to increase that person's hours from 20 hours a week to 25. That 25 hours didn't get carried over. It was just 20 because I think we were just used to having a 20-hour week staff. So that's why the increase looks like that. We hired the new admin at 25 hours. So that's the biggest difference there, just to kind of show some clarity there. I mean, the other ones are small. I can speak to those if you'd like. But those are, I think, the biggest picture ones that we have coming up this upcoming year. Happy to answer any questions.
I have a quick question about your revolver funds
Sure.
that you'll use to sort of bolster Silver Lake in a limited capacity for this season. What's in that revolver fund account at this point?
Right now, probably it looks very healthy because we took all of our camp registrations about a month ago. So there's probably about 700,000 in there right now, but that basically gets absorbed after. Our department's weird where our busiest season's the summer, so we take all of our registrations ahead of time and then we deplete that by August or September with salaries and supplies and stuff like that. So
Yeah, because all your part-time staff or your seasonal staff will come out of there.
correct, yep. So all of our summer day staff,
Right. How many seasonals do you hire?
we hire a total of 60, 40 in summer days and 20 at the beach.
So that additional 20 at the beach, the additional 104, that is what you need supplementary to the revolver funds in that case?
The revolving account doesn't, the beach salaries are separate from that. So we don't, the revolving account covers the summer days camp staff fees. So it's separate from the beach staff. The 104 that is in the reduction budget would be for those beach staff.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And so that is half of this summer, coming summer, and then part next summer.
Correct. Yep. So it's 6-ish weeks of this summer and then 3-ish weeks of the following summer. So summer 2027.
So you'd have about 65,000 to cover for this year from other funding sources.
Correct.
How much do you know? How much you bring in beach passes and other stuff to offset the 104?
So last summer we brought in about $16,000 in beach pass fees. I didn't mention prior to, on top of cutting back hours at the beach, if the override didn't pass, we would most likely increase fees as well. Just because we need to close the gap. So
Yeah.
that would be where it would come from, would be increasing those fees. We haven't increased fees. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but probably decades at this point since those pass fees went up. So, I mean, even if an override does pass, it might be a conversation that Evan and I can have about increasing them anyways. I have comparative analysis done and we're one of the lower, like our passes are cheaper compared to what other communities offer, and we have far more amenities. So I think it's reasonable for a little bit of a jump, but
Sure.
we want to make it affordable because it's a great resource in town. We don't want to price people out because we need to close the gap. But if unfortunately decisions need to be made, those are the decisions need to be made. So
Do you know what the current fees are for Silver Lake?
yeah, so it's $45 for a family pass, 20 for a couple, 10 or 20 for individual, excuse me, and then 10 for a senior. Season passes for non-residents are 75, 40, and 20 right now. So this year, unlike last year, we are also offering. So before I was here, there were no day passes for non-residents, and we're offering that back this summer in hopes to recoup some costs as well. So that we're hoping that will bring some more revenue as well.
Yeah, I think they remember scaling those back to during COVID to keep the population
Yeah.
in line. But
Do you know how many out of town passes we sell normally, or like?
Off the top of my head, it's probably about 20 to 25% of the total pass sales that we get.
I feel like I would raise that first. I mean, 45 is pretty low for a family, but
75 for
75 for
non-residents?
Non-residents,
Yeah.
yep, for a family. Yep.
Yeah, I think you could still argue that there's some wiggle room. I don't want to pull numbers out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some quantitative.
Like I said, I every year I always do an analysis of all the communities that are within a 5 mile radius of us, 10 mile radius, and see what their pass rates are. Just in case the conversation needs to be had about increasing rates, I have that information ready to go. So, like I said, we are below, I think, a lot of communities. And like I said, based on the amenities that we have, bathrooms, the whole thing,
Food.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's wouldn't be a bad idea to explore if we needed to. So.
I agree.
Are there any costs other than salaries for operating Silver Lake?
Yeah, so we every year we get the beach permitted, of course, through the Board of Health. We also pay for a weed treatment that basically gets the swimming area clear. We also have to do weekly testing due to the Board of Health, so that's about $170 a test, and it has to be done every week. On top of that, if we have any issues with blue-green algae, I'm gonna knock on wood now, it won't happen, but that will cover costs of those tests and things like that. So
We did some work upstream from Silver Lake, which seems to have helped.
it definitely made a big difference last summer. 2 summers ago, we were closed for 3 weeks because of algae, and last year it was 3 days, and it was the last 3 days of the season. So, although I'm fortunate, I'd rather it be at the end of the season for 3 days versus 3 weeks in the middle of the summer.
The
So,
poor dogs, though. They don't get their dog.
I know I have not been here for a doggy dip day yet. I really would love to see one because my dog would love swimming, so I'd love to take him out there. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that. So.
So then all in with the staff salaries and the permit, the weed spraying, all how much is it?
Probably about 130. It's about 25 for all the testing and the weed treatments and stuff like that. So
I do have some basic questions here, Adam. And one of the things we'd like to see is people be able to look at this ClearGov
yeah,
and kind of know what we're getting. So I kind of taking a look at the repair and maintenance line. There's $21,700 in there.
yep.
What's that for?
So that's where we take the testing and the weed treatments out of that line. We also have when we de-winterize and winterize the beach bathrooms, and Norcross is included in that as well. We also have about a $3,000 placeholder for miscellaneous playground fixes or beach fixes. Last summer we had to remove a bee infestation at the beach that we weren't anticipating. It just kind of has a buffer for us in case there's significant safety issue with the port-in-place rubber. We have money set aside that we can fix the equipment or things like that. New parts for swing sets or playground equipment, anything like that. So.
Okay, the next one I had a question on is professional and technical.
Yep.
The note kind of seemed a little confusing compared to what was in there.
Yep. And sorry, that's professional and technical, you said?
Yep.
So most of that comes from our software that we use to register for our programs. That's our biggest expense. Other than that, built in here is an ADA accommodations fund. Part of my task of being here was to increase our inclusive and adaptive programming in town. So this just kind of puts money aside for us to be able to create reasonable accommodations outside of the basic, visual schedules for our campers or, small things that don't cost a lot of money if it's just printing out a piece of paper. And then also in this line as well, there's a little bit of money just to help subsidize the concert series. Bands are getting more and more expensive every year. We do apply for a cultural council grant, but that covers maybe one band. So that's where that money comes from.
So like in that kind of section, I would expect to see, like 10 band concerts for $500 a piece and that kind of stuff to total up to the amount of money that's there, because that's, $18,000.
Yep.
The same kind of thing goes for the recreational employees training.
Yep.
You've got a note about a $700 increase for the for you to go to a class, but what's the other $5,000 getting us?
Yep. So that includes giving our coordinator a chance to go to the conferences as well. The conferences average between $400 to $500, and then we also factor in travel as well into that, hotel stays, things like that. We have that in there. We're looking to get one of us, either me or Cody, certified playground and safety inspector certification. It's a $600 certification, again, just to make sure that our playgrounds can be properly monitored and safe. That also includes all of our certifications for first aid and CPR for our non-lifeguard staff. I am an instructor and I train all of our non-lifeguard staff first aid and CPR. So that's about $45 a person, and we estimate we have usually about 20 people that need it every season. And then, as I mentioned, the $7 increase is typically, I attended the National Park and Recs Conference, which typically it's about $1,000 by the end of it. But this year, the premier recreation training is that director school that I had mentioned in the notes, and that's about $700 more than that. So that's where the increase comes from.
Do we have anyone that is certified for playground safety inspection today, or is that something we outsource?
I don't believe we have anybody. Daryl, our parks guy, is not. That's typically not something we outsource. It's typically a lot of rec departments in the state just have somebody on staff that just goes and inspects them. Obviously, the bigger cities that have that capability, they do. So I'm not aware of anybody. I don't know if you know anybody that's CPSI certified in town. I don't think so.
It's a gap right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right, so what's there's almost $15,000 in other supplies?
Yep. So that covers beach supplies for staff. What's it called? Staff uniforms, whistles, et cetera, et cetera. That also covers some subsidies for some of our special events. If we didn't have the subsidies built in, we'd be charging people, or we wouldn't be able to run as many events. So it supports getting things like for Grafton celebrates the holidays, getting some ornaments or things like that for the tree, things like that. And also includes every year for our summer staff, we do an overtime exemption through the state. We have to apply for it. Unfortunately, I don't know why they charge us, but they do, even though we're a municipality. It seems silly, but that's what they do. So that basically helps us also control costs with our lifeguards, because if they go over 40, they don't get time and a half because we're seasonal, so that we're exempt from overtime for that.
Yeah, some of that almost sounds like it should be someplace else in your budget, because it's not really a supply. And then you had mentioned some in-state travel included in some of the other things.
Yeah, there's
you have a line for it.
Correct. There's a $250 line under in-state travel that if we do a monthly Central Mass Park and Rec Association meeting, so that covers mileage reimbursement for that. If Cody or anybody attends one of those conferences and doesn't take the rec vehicle, that covers the mileage reimbursement there. That's kind of more of a placeholder. Last year, I think we overspent in this line by a little bit because the conference was in Norwood, and both of the staff that went took their own vehicles. But we just have that as a placeholder in case somebody needs to be reimbursed for mileage.
In the rec professional tech, how much of that is the software? That $18,000.
$8,200 this year.
And
They're projecting a 5% increase, and also the software that we have, it's based on how much money that the software actually processes. And although it's great that we're bringing in more summer days enrollments, that means $300 times a lot more kids. So I'm anticipating a little bit more. Next
And
year.
is this annual?
Annual? It's an annual subscription.
That's it. Put something like that in the notes section there, so
Yeah.
when we're kind of going through and looking at it, it kind of adds up a little bit.
Yeah.
Cut
Okay.
way down on the conversations.
That's fair.
Excuse my ignorance if this is a dumb question, but is a software package like that is like processing fees or enrollment for something an opportunity for sharing across departments? Is there a specific reason why it must be a different line item here versus maybe somewhere else where we could combine funds, combine pieces of software? You know what I mean? Like, are we paying for the same kind of thing twice?
No. So, rec is a very specialized department as far as what softwares exist. And so their software deals with scheduling,
Right.
takes payment, does the whole thing. Whereas like our tax collectors you know, their software is entirely different because they're not scheduling. It doesn't tie to anything else. We did go through in our performance-based budgeting process and look at all of our softwares to reduce redundancies, and we were able to do that in places that were like PDF readers, different accessibility tools, things like that. But there are like the building department software, very specialized, based around permitting. Rec has a very specialized software core group. Obviously, police and fire have their own. Everywhere else, we're just using Word and Excel, and you know, there's so we can move the rec software into IT.
We just have a the software that we use is
But-
very specialized to what we need it for. You know, like we talked about, we moved to this software actually because we were on a different one when I started. You know, like we were going to go on to a treasurer collector's pay and point system, and it didn't, like we needed the back end of registration that wouldn't connect with the point and pay, so it just didn't work. So
Fair enough.
yeah,
The school
just
doesn't use anything like that for their sports.
Not that I'm aware
they
of.
use the scheduling well, I don't know if it's the software. It's like a website. I don't know if it's technically considered software, but we use it when we reserve stuff through the school. But it doesn't cover, like, our software does everything: registration, reservation for fields and spaces, paying for program. It's a compulsory, you know, software. So
Nothing that I've seen that the schools is using is akin
Similar.
to what we're using.
They also do things like rent out facilities that I'm sure
They
take
do.
fees and have registrations, but fair enough. Worth asking if
Yep.
if I
The other thing to just note, and I'm not speaking specifically to the rec software,
yeah.
but what we've been seeing more and more is that these software companies that we're dealing with create a municipal product, and they create a school product.
Yeah.
And you can't share that product.
Never the twain shall
They do
meet.
that on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Gets
Right.
It's kind of like the plugs in your cell phone.
yeah,
Basically,
no,
yeah.
it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have seen that in a couple of different areas.
All right. Any additional questions for Adam?
Maybe quick. This is small on the energy. $45 increase. Like, do we think this 3% is like actually reasonable? Should it be more than that?
I mean, we're seeing 3 to 5%.
I mean, like
I'm the one
like,
down there that when the beach closes, I'm like, shut everything off, make sure the lights are off. So I make sure like we're not, the lights aren't on when I'm not there.
in the last few years.
We've had about a 5%. I know it didn't make sense in my brain just knowing how crazy electricity rates have been, but because we only really use it 3 months out of the year, we don't really see the impact like if your normal house would, where it's like, you know, you're seeing the 20%, or, you know, we're seeing 15-20% in some places.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know. I feel like just because of what's going on lately, I'm like, oh, it's 3% even.
Yeah, no, I looked at it
think
too, and I was
based on
like,
these
"There's no
now,
way."
it
But
makes
yeah, no, we're
Yeah.
turning about a 3 to 5% increase.
And who knows, in 3 weeks it might not be.
Exactly. That's like always like these little increases. I always get worried. I'm like, is that reasonable? Are we lowballing ourselves?
Yeah, we've been that line itself has been underspent, not significantly, but that 3% seems to be holding well. So
Just one plug before Adam goes. If none of you are listening to our podcast, Municipals, Adam just recorded one with us, with William and I today. I think it's one of our finest ones yet.
it was fun. I had a lot of fun.
You can get it-
I was like, I've never been on a podcast before. This is weird.
You
So
can listen to it wherever you get your podcast.
Spotify, Apple, yeah.
How
It's
long,
on
how long is it?
everywhere.
Will it get me through my 12 miles this week?
If you run a 1 minute mile, maybe, or a 2 minute mile, maybe, but it was like 30 minutes, I think, by the end of
I
it. Right?
honestly don't remember. It was such a good.
It flew by. So
William said some weird stuff, so we got to go down that, haven't it? Yeah.
I'll tune in.
He
I'll
was,
tune in.
off the reservation already.
I'm
so he
getting
had
bored
no idea.
nowadays.
So, anyways, that was just my plug for the podcast.
Love a plug.
it was fun.
Great job.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Adam.
Okay. Moving right along to our second line, and that is to review the FY27 Blackstone Valley Tech budget with the superintendent director. So I know we have Mr. Steele
Thank you.
here.
Thank
Hello,
you.
how are you? Welcome.
Chair Duckworth, members of the committee, appreciate you giving us the opportunity to present. I know last year I was here as your assistant superintendent, and obviously July 1st took Dr. Fitzpatrick's place. going well so far.
Okay.
I think you know this fella here, your longtime school committee rep.
Absolutely.
Mr.
No
Yitz.
longer than listening to the rec budget was kind of different. I was on the rec commission in the 90s before there were any paid administrative people for that. We had all be volunteers at that time.
I'd also like to introduce Dr. Connors back here. So Dr. Connors took my role as assistant superintendent. He's also the curriculum director of BVT. And like Dr. Fitzpatrick did for me, I'm trying to baptize him by fire here and get him used to these things.
I was also one of your camp coaches multiple decades ago.
We also have some seats up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it, I thought you were getting him into the fire. Get him up
Well,
at the
come
table.
on
Yeah.
up, man. So
I love the rec ties here too. That's great.
just to kind of kick things off here, a little bit different budget book than we've had in the past. We redesigned that. Hearing a lot of feedback, we tried to put more things on our website. So this is actually also electronic. That's what Matt was going to do for us here, was to scroll along. So I was always envisioning people at home in Zoom land watching a bunch of people flip through a book they can't see. So Matt's going to follow along, but just be aware that the entirety, exactly as you see printed here, is on our website and accessible to anyone, anytime. A few other things we tried to do, just listening to people in the past. I think last year, Mr. Mario, you were asking for the regional agreement. It's on there. I made double checked before I came. I believe it's under our district tab. We have all of our school committees' email addresses and so forth. So, trying to be responsive and transparent in that way. The FY27 budget was just voted and approved last Thursday night, so it's less than a week old. But thankfully, we have talented students and staff that put this book together for us, so we do make this in-house. We had our public hearing on the 12th, and following that school committee vote. Just like to walk you through a few things as we get going here. First, you'll see the composition of our budget subcommittee, subset of our larger school committee, plus a few of our administrative team members, like Ms. Ferguson is our business manager, Mr. Pilla is the district treasurer, myself, Dr. Connors, and a few assistant folks from the business office. They really start meeting, it's about September when we really start the budget process. On the next page, you'll see page 4. What I would like to point out here is obviously this is a nice summary of our mission, our core values, what we have for learning expectations and so forth. Admittedly, this presentation is heavily financial. If you are curious about the return on investment or how the kids are doing or how the school's doing, I'm happy to stop and answer that. It's just this presentation is mainly geared towards finance committees and folks interested in the numbers. I've seen schools present on budgets and you get 90% how the kids are doing and a few numbers at the end. I have a lot to talk about in terms of the finances, so kind of inverted that. But I can assure you the students are doing extraordinarily well. Your students that are at Valley Tech are continuing to really deliver under high expectations. And happy to, again, talk about any of that if you wish, okay? The next page is a cover letter from me. And I'd like to just point out, obviously I'm not going to read this to you, but I just want to point out a few key things that really were substantial in this budget season. First, it was very evident very early on, you could even say from last year, that this is a time of great financial restraint or distress. I would say at least half of our member towns are in significant financial situations. I'm well aware, I do read the papers as well. I know what Grafton is going through. Just left Northbridge last night. I'm well aware what they're going through. We always have said we want to be good partners. We want to be great partners with our member towns. As they say, talk is cheap, right? Show me. And I think you'll see a lot of that throughout, that not just your new superintendent, but our school committee members, our teachers, our support staff, everybody was well aware, recognizing the reality of the times financially here. Frankly, not something I've seen in many, many years. Also follow Mass Municipal Association and others. This is something that extends well beyond the valley, certainly across the state, better part of New England. You could even argue, nationwide. But the classic problem that expenses are escalating faster than you can, create revenue, and so we wanted to do our part. I can say, luckily, thankfully, as the new superintendent, the school committee felt that way. The Teachers Association appreciate what that means, and so it's not me swimming upstream. I had, good cooperation throughout. We always look at ourselves, in terms of how efficiently are we doing what we do. So the best way of doing that, one way, is to look at our 25 sister schools. There's 26 schools like Valley Tech in the state. Not that it's a competition, but it's nice to know what's possible or not possible, and are we being as efficient as others, and so forth. The state essentially considers Voc Tech Ed or Career Tech Ed, like our system, to be 1.5 to 2 times the cost of typical or regular education. I did look at all the per pupils of the 13 towns. They vary greatly, but we are doing that at about 1.25 times. I think in here there's a typo. It says 1.25% of the average per pupil cost of the centers. I wish, I guess in percentage, there'd be 125%. What we mean there is 1.25 times. Okay, so I just want to acknowledge that typo in there before somebody calls me on that like they did last night. And the other thing we look at, they'll just slide in the back of the deck here. I look at the other 25 sister schools like us, and we have consistently ranked down in the bottom third on a per pupil cost. So we monitor that, and really, one thing that is an exciting challenge for us is to say, can we provide you with the best, or at least one of the best regarded Voc Tech schools in the state, and do it at an extremely efficient cost? A guy like me finds that exciting. And I gotta say, Dr. Connors too. I think Mr. Yitz appreciates it. One thing you'll see thematically through here is that I've already referred to a good working relationship with our Teachers Association. I don't take that for granted. None of us do. That's nice when you have it. We've had it for quite some time. I did mention that they also recognize that a lot of our sending towns and sending school districts are in trouble, struggling financially. And it's a challenge to them as well to say, hey, how can we run Valley Tech more efficiently? Don't ruin it. Protect the quality of the education. But is there, every little contribution of how you can do this more efficiently or cheaper without sacrificing the quality is the goal. So I have 2 examples of that here in the cover letter. One, we early on in the year negotiated our health insurance for active employees. 5 or 6 working sessions with our brokers. We do deep dives into exactly what's driving cost, everything from prescriptions to habits and so forth of how we're utilizing services. A good example in the past was that we had a lot of emergency room usage. Go to the faculty and we say, you please use the urgent care, stay out of the emergency room if you can. The good news is they respond and they actually do something different. This year, the big difference was the GLP-1s, so the weight loss injections. And we asked them, had to bargain with them or have them agree to drop that benefit. We were able to have consensus with that. Mutually, we did drop that. And that helped us secure a 3.95% increase in active employee health insurance. Almost unheard of these days, but certainly welcome news for a school district trying to cut costs. Okay. The next thing we did with the teachers was it was a contract year to negotiate. Mr. Yitz was on the negotiation subcommittee. We were able to work with our teachers without legal and in a very amicable fashion restructure time and learning for the school year. So we actually still have the longest school calendar in the state, but we were able to increase the school day, but decrease the calendar days. So for a net gain of more contact time, but in exchange for that, negotiated a 0.00 on the base raise. They're still stepping, but there is no adjustment on each base. With the exception of the top step, they have nowhere to step to, so they get a 2, 1.5, 1. The total salary increase for us is about 1.2% over last year, which is incredible. Again, we didn't have to sacrifice quality of instruction or instructional time to do it. It was mutually beneficial, very agreeable with both parties, and again, we're able to settle that without legal representation. We had a plug when we were budgeting of 11%. So we use Lytics. I don't know if you're all involved with negotiating, but it's a great tool that looks at all of the regional agreements that have been made. And basically 11% over 3 years is the norm in the region. That was the plug that we had used in budgeting until we had settled this contract. The difference between what we settled on and what the norm would have been is about $2 million over 3 years. Specifically this year, it's about $323,000 savings. And so, you know, it gets better. Next year, I think it's about 700, and the final year, it's about $1 million. So again, a great example of, let's say, everybody rowing in the same direction at Valley Tech. They say, you know, can you do what you do as well or better and do it cheaper? And so those are two good examples I'd like to share with you about, you know, I don't take it for granted. You don't always have that. I'm very appreciative of that. It's been helpful for us. Let's see. Last, I just, you know, want to just reiterate that the relationships that we have make that possible. A lot of these things, I would not be able to achieve these things as a school committee if we didn't have a staff that was responsive like that. So happy to report that to you. On the next page, a little bit about our process, if you don't know it. The earliest part of the process starts with our program advisory committee. So part of Chapter 74 VOC-TEC education is that each of our 18 programs, plus the nurses, the adult program at night, must have a program advisory committee. A program advisory committee is basically a group of folks that are in that trade, actively currently in the trade, and they consult with each program, not just on curriculum, instruction, skills that are, let's say, coming into need, but also the ones that are falling off. But a big part of their role is to help our department's budget, specifically with equipment recommendations, what's needed, what's no longer needed, and so forth. So that really drives a lot of the vocational budget requests that early on in the fall. The budget subcommittee really starts getting together in the beginning of October, meets regularly. Each department comes up and presents, so it's a zero-based budgeting process. Everything that is brought up series by series, probably not unlike how you do your local system, is rationalized, defended, if you will. Also looked at to see if there are other ways that we can get it. So if it's a piece of equipment, is there anybody who can donate that? Is there a grant out there that we could get that, and so forth. We allowed the budget to just build, Okay, we don't do any cutting at that time. There's particular focus on particularly the deltas. Okay, what's either getting a more expensive or less. The bigger, the more interest we take in them, and an explanation for those. With the final product of the budget subcommittee this year, I'll give you a detail of this at the end of towards the end of the presentation, but I believe the total was 7.22% increase over last year. That is not, let me say, consistent with what we had in mind. So we go through it and try to make thoughtful cuts. We did that to the tune of $1.5 million because we had a target of 2.50 in mind. So to reach that 2.5% overall budget, we did have to reduce $1.5 million within that. Starts with that subcommittee. Ultimately, that moves forward to the school council. So that's parents, students, teachers, and so forth have an input into the budget. Usually a scenario like that, their input is in, oh God, what are you cutting? Are we going to be okay with this? And admittedly, cutting $1.5 million out of our budget is, down to the bone. But we feel like we're not destroying the school to do it. It's not comfortable. I think everybody can relate to that. The last or next step is the public hearing, as I mentioned at the beginning. That was March 12th, and subsequently a school committee vote to approve it. At the end of that process, our treasurer distributes that to our 13 towns. So by now, I would imagine that has arrived. Okay, so it's a note on basically how we go about building the budget each year, and I'll get into those cuts as we go. The next page is a summary of our revenues and expenses. I'll start at the top with Chapter 70. It hasn't been, incredibly robust. It's certainly been the topic of a lot of schools across the state saying, look, this math isn't mathing. Chapter 70 is not doing what we think it should or is sufficient. I don't know if anyone had a chance to participate in the Chapter 70 listening sessions or to submit your testimony in those. We took part in those. But we, as a result of the formula, had a 1.81% increase in Chapter 70. As I always say, I can't get too mad at them. They did give us $9,588,000, but obviously, from a formulaic standpoint, everybody seems to be recognizing that it is not keeping up with inflationary costs and things like that. The next line down is Chapter 71 Regional Transportation. So as a regional school, you get the benefit of the state reimbursing transportation. Originally in the beginning, to encourage regionalization, it was 100%. We don't typically see that. 75% is somewhat the starting point. I believe the governor's budget starting point this year was 80%. That will float up and down until the budget's finalized, say in June, and we have to nonetheless put a placeholder. So we used an 80% placeholder for Chapter 71. If there is a windfall, let's say it comes in at 90 or 95, whatever excess there is will go into the Chapter 71 stabilization account. The rules there are that it came from transportation from 71. It can only be held for transportation and used for transportation and has to be used the subsequent year. Okay, so should we see an increase in that, then that will be held for you and applied to transportation in FY28. Okay. Fee revenue, you'll see doubled. We are one of two career technical schools that charges students fees for sports and parking and things like that. So we've been doing that, but we also thought that in good faith, if you will, that it was time to increase it. So we doubled all fees. That's that 65,000 change you see on the next line. Investment income went down. That's simply a function of interest rates. And so, you know, that's not good news when you're talking about your investments. But as a school is going to bond in the near future for a roof project, I guess it's not bad news, okay? Live by it, die by it, okay? But nonetheless, our treasurer, who manages our investment accounts, definitely was responding to the decrease in percentage or rates. Unreserved fund balance, over the years, you've been accustomed to us usually putting 250,000 from excess and deficiency towards the revenue side of the budget. We're doing that again. I think over the last 20 years, it has ranged from 100 to 350, but that's typically 2 to 250. We're being consistent with that to help, again, offset member assessments. Other miscellaneous revenue, that's equipment surplus for the most part, and we, you know, pretty consistent with that year over year. Last, you see a line there for that there is that other funding source, XSPY, Chapter 71, that's that transportation reserve. You can see back in 24-25, we benefited from that, well, should I say you did, as we were able to hold that and apply it that year. Moving down, you step into the member assessment side of things. The first line there, transportation, that's the remainder of what the 80%, if you will, does not cover. Capital equipment is minimal. It's 106,000. Essentially, that's a firewall and switches. I'm going to call them switches. If anybody needs more detail on that, one of these technical guys can tell you. Okay, so the things that all those Cat 5 wires plug into, and they're incredibly expensive. Next, retiree medical. We budgeted or put a placeholder in here for 13.25%. That's what it was last year. I'll believe this when I see it, but we were predicted to be level on retiree medical. So we went with level. If we are wrong and it's more, we live with it. You know, we'll have to fill it in either with excess and deficiency or some other way in our budget. Thematically, as the cover suggests, we got one bite at the apple. We don't come back if we, you know, blew it with a prediction there. But and likewise, if there is an excess, it'll go to E&D, and we'll be giving back at least a portion of it to you the following year. So hopefully
So what number is in here now?
we use 13.25, which is what it was last year.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that holds.
Okay.
Okay. And retiree medical is a hard one to predict. We hardly ever see these folks. We don't know what's happening with them or the family. You're kind of going off of general GIC predictions and so forth. So nonetheless, we feel comfortable with that number. I'm just saying I hope it sticks. Okay. Let's see. Minimum contribution, as you see, the purple on the right there, increased by 5.12%. This is a trend that I think you're probably used to seeing, where the state goes up a little, but then asks the towns to go up a lot. I know that when I started at Valley Tech, it was roughly inverted. About 60-40, the state would pay 60, the towns would pay 40, and we're about the total inverse of that. And it's usually slowly walked about 3.5% a year. You see it shift. So to see a year jumping 5.12 got my attention. Right? They're basically asking the towns to carry more of the burden, and the state's carrying less. That's part of that Chapter 70 issue that people are saying this formula is not working for us anymore. Okay. Let's see. Additional assessment did go down by about 16-17%. That's a concerted effort. We're trying to, you know, bring that down as much as we can. When I talk more about, well, next line, debt. There is no debt in FY27. That's in reference to our roof project, which all 13 towns approved. I'll refresh your memory. That was permission to borrow up to $10 million to do our 60,000 square feet of roof replacement and the associated ventilation under it. The school is moving ahead. We haven't missed any deadlines or any major requirements. It's just the MSBA is a very patient, thorough process. Okay, so as I say, we're moving at the speed of the MSBA. We did just get our bid openings, and they're all well within the expected range, so that's good news. And we're slated to do the roof construction this summer. It's about probably 6 weeks, maybe less, to come in, and they'll do that, of course, when the building's not occupied. And then we'll be able to proceed with the ventilation portion of the project. So in the meantime, we will be working off of bands and GANs, so bond anticipation notes or grant anticipation notes. And in that scenario, you're not assigning debt to the towns. We basically will run on a series of bands and GANs until the project's complete, and then you consolidate them all, and that's when the bond is transferred over to the towns as a debt service. In the meantime, we absorb the interest it's interest-only payments, and we absorb that within the budget. So in the per pupil cost in here is about $150,000 for interest on the bands, as well as about $250,000 in feasibility and schematic design. So we're carrying about $400,000 within this budget to service that project as it goes forward. Now I'll say this, I hope that we finish the ventilation portion of the project in 27 and we're able to bond in 28. But there's a good chance that might not happen. I shared that with Evan, that, I'm hearing things about particularly ventilation, mechanicals and things being back ordered and maybe not the roof's clicking right along, but I don't know that that portion will. So there's a potential that, we could be still in a band scenario in FY28, in which case you wouldn't see a debt service until 29. So that's the kind of the situation with the roof and the debt associated with it. You get the total there. There's our 2.5%, and below that we get into some of the expenses, the summary on the expenses. The 1,000 through 7,000 series there, you can see is a 4.11% increase, but I'll give you a little asterisk on that I'll come back to in a moment. We just discussed 8,000 series, that's the debt and what's going on, and as well as short-term interest. School choice, we have one student. Last year we had 4. If you're not familiar with how school choice works, this is a student who is going to Worcesterville, correct? So. I believe he's at Worcester, he or she. Someone we've never met is attending school at Worcester Voc. Not even sure what town this person lives in. It's kind of irrelevant. The way it works is that we would get Chapter 70 money for that student, and Valley Tech acts as a pass-through for it. So this doesn't hurt you. It's not an expense. We're simply a mechanism to pass it through.
Doesn't take a seat.
Doesn't take a seat. There's none of that, but financially we act as a pass-through. And we had 4 of them last year. We have 1 now. That's why you see this $14,000 difference. It's just a mathematical function of how they pay for out-of-district students.
So that comes in from the state in school choice,
It would-
incoming, and then goes out to the other.
It would
Yeah,
come in
school.
through Chapter 70 through School Aid, and then right back out the door to Worcester, right? So they just use us as a pass-through. Is basically how that works.
I know, at least for us, it's a separate line than Chapter 70, but
Yeah,
Same.
it's a little different for your choice
Okay.
students than it would be for us. We're basically like the middleman who just passes through the funds. If it's your student,
Doesn't it?
yeah.
if
Yeah,
it's your,
if they were the
your
state, they'd be charging 20% for the privilege of passing it through.
Well, if you're the town who owns that student, yes, you're definitely paying a lot
Yeah.
more of the bill than that. Okay. Let's see. All right. The last line there, you see reduction in force, but let's keep flipping here. Next page is page 8 is about excess and deficiency. I think everyone is aware that excess and deficiency for a regional school is not just allowable, it's highly recommended. Again, we are fiscally autonomous in that whatever happens, we have to be able to manage any kind of unforeseen situations, a boiler breaks, anything like that, because we simply don't have a singular town to go back to. So the state and Department of Revenue caps that at 5%. We are currently certified at E&D this year of $1,384,579. You can see the summary at the bottom, which is 4.3%. So we're within our 5% cap. I think I already made it clear to you that the district has applied $250,000 of it towards the revenue side of the sheet. But we also, like to, for full disclosure, make sure that everyone is aware of the things we use E&D for. So obviously, one-time purchases, highly unadvisable to ever use E&D for a recurring expense. So to my knowledge, we've never done that. It has been our primary go-to source to maintain our building. You may have noticed that over the years, I think it's been about 25 years since we've had a special warrant article. I think it was a dump truck in about 23 years ago.
Yep.
Right, but we maintain our own building. We have a capital improvement plan. This has been a great way for us to keep Valley Tech, it's a 62-year-old building now, up to snuff without major, again, borrowing or projects. The 2004 renovation, and it's 20 years later, we just did this $10 million bond to fix the roof. But otherwise, everything in between, we've been able to maintain actually a very good-looking school building for its age. And so that's one way. We also will seek, as I said, any kind of grant opportunity. It certainly strengthens your grant if you have some matching funds. That's another typical use of E&D for us. As well as any unforeseen emergency or cost or things like that. In full disclosure, the school committee intends to utilize up to $600,000 of E&D in FY27. It's come down a little bit. I think last year we were $750. We're in more of a conservation saving mode at the moment, so we brought that down a little bit, which I think is advisable. Couple other things on this page. You may or may not remember that last year we had a majority of the towns approve a stabilization account. Great accounts made, but we are not in the position to be stowing money away for stabilization. So there's no appropriation to that. It's basically formed, but will stay there with a zero balance in it. And transportation, we've talked about a few times. Hopefully, we may see greater than an 80% reimbursement on transportation, and we'll be able to put some money in there for next year. Okay. Any questions on E&D? Okay. Next, we get to the town assessments on page 9. Specifically, Grafton is going down by 2 students, but has an increase of 1.93%. The increase is $31,882. What's interesting about it, at least from my perspective, is minimum contribution for -2 students actually went up $39,630. But because we have a fairly conservative budget here, it cooled it down from 3% to really 1.93. It's still never great to see you have a decrease in students and you still have an increase. But at least I'm happy to say that it's relatively minimal increase given what I'm seeing in some other districts. Brings your per pupil cost to $18,342, which puts you right around, I'll say, 5th in rank in terms of the varying per pupil costs that Chapter 70 formula creates through minimum contribution. So you don't want to win that prize, I don't think, anyway. Not the contest you want to win, but you're not quite at the top. You're somewhat at the top third. Okay. basically, I look at this a little differently than maybe most people do, but 81% of that increase is because of the change in that formula, minimum contribution. It's tough because we worked really hard and took some pretty good hits to get to a 2.5% overall increase, and then I turn around and tell good people like you that congratulations, you're down 2 kids, but you're still going up, 1.93%. But that's the way it works. Any questions on per pupil? Excuse me. Okay. Before you flip the page, just one thing I did a little bit different visually here. You see in the chart there, it shows everybody's operational ratios. So you have Grafton with 92 students with an operational ratio of 7.36%. Minimum contribution is not highlighted because it's its own animal, okay, and it has its own formulation. When it comes to the other items, like transportation, capital equipment, retiree medical, they're always in their own column because they're not part of foundation, and additional assessment. I color-coded those the same because everything else simply goes by your operational ratio, right? You'll pay 7.36% of the total of those items. So I did that just to highlight that, some of the things that we find surprising, sometimes baffling about Chapter 70 calculations and minimum contribution, at least the portions that we do control, it's straight operational ratio, okay? No voodoo math there, okay?
So those are the portions above what's covered by the minimum contribution.
That's correct. So as you go across, you finally get to your last column, which is the assessment, FY27 assessment. So you get minimum contribution. You have to take transportation, capital equipment, and retiree medical and put it outside of minimum contribution. And then whatever the plug is, in other words, the difference between that and your overall budget, in this case to close to a 2.5%, that's where we have the additional assessment. What's interesting about additional assessment is that last year it was 1.8 million. We got it down about 16%, I think it was, to 1.52. Our goal is to try to shrink that even more. If we didn't have the 400,000 in there for the interest, it's one-time interest on the roof and the feasibility and schematic design, really comparing year to year, that's really 1.1. So we felt pretty good about, our ability to really crank things down and run things a bit more efficiently. I somewhat use that like the barometer. And so, we hope to continue to do that in the future. I don't know that it's ever going to go to zero. You can have other problems start to occur. If, for example, we're running very, very close to required net school spending. When you start falling under required net school spending, there's penalties and punishments that can come with that. Namely, they'll start, the primary punishment is they'll reduce your Chapter 78. Right? So you're kind of like hovering a helicopter as close to the ground as you can get it, and don't crash it. Okay, so we're reaching a point of efficiency like that, where I think you'll see additional assessment in the future continue to come down some, especially when we clear off, holding interest payments and things like that. But I think you get down to a certain point and it's going to kind of hover, because you really don't want to fall under required net school spending because of the penalties. Okay. Moving to page 10, let's see. Okay. So you have a overall budget expense summary by function here, and in the pages that follow, kind of an explanatory on each series within the budget. I want to just jump, if I can, to page 22. It's the debt 8,000, 9,000 page. It's page 22. I'll give you a second to get there. The reason why I want to do this. Okay. I'll use a teacher technique. Everybody look up when you found the page. Okay. You see at the top, debt, 8,000, we talked about that with what we're doing with the interest only. School choice, we talked about that. It's the next column down, the reduction in force. So in order to reach a 2.5% target from, again, coming down from a 7.22 to a 250, required $1.5 million, 1.52 to be exact. So you don't do that without getting into salary and wage. 88% of our budget's fixed cost, but 56% of it is salary and wage. So you just simply can't make cuts like that without getting into FTEs. And so this budget includes about approximately 8 FTE cuts in it. Some of that, and much of it, is highly variable depending on who comes in. We're just about to, accept our next cohort of students. How many classes do we need of X, Y, and Z to fill their needs? What I can tell you is that it obviously we had some concept of what positions are, we say, cuttable and up for consideration, and it's across pretty much all series, right? It's not just teachers, it's not just support and so forth. It's pretty spread out, very spread out. So how we represented that in this budget was that clearly on paper here, within the math, you can see we've committed to $650,000 of reduction to salary and wage, or approximately 8 FTEs. So now when you go back and you look at series 1,000 through 7,000, they're actually not accurate because there is 8 less FTEs that are going to be sprinkled throughout those categories. Otherwise, they're perfectly fine, but they're not. That 4.11% increase is not accurate. There's 650,000 or 8 less FTEs at the end of the day. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that people understood that. There are other ways to go about it. You could pink slip the whole place, and then at the end of the session say, okay, you're good news, Anthony, you're still employed. We just took it a little bit differently because we know we're doing it, but exactly who and what positions remains to be seen. Okay, still.
And our head count isn't going down. We had almost 700 applicants again this year for like 315, 320 positions, which has been the norm now for the past, I don't know, 8 or 9 years.
We have 2.5 times the applicants than we have seats.
Yeah.
So, our enrollment's basically never going to go down. So we're it's not like we had fewer students to do that. We just, we're very committed to coming with a budget that was not in excess of the levy, Prop 2.5, and that's what it took to do it. Okay. The following page 23 is the accounting of that 1.52 million in cuts. I'll point out a couple things. Obviously, at the top is your biggest reduction is in those FTEs. Showing you the collective bargaining agreement. That's the teacher's contract that has saved us quite a bit of money in year one. Some other things I'll look at. Here's an important one down. You see revolving account offset. So another way to help with things is you can look at cutting expenses, but you can also generate some revenue. And so we started, you're probably aware that we started BVTI. That is our night school program for adults. Significant effort by the school, all grant funded. It is self-sustaining, doesn't cost, has zero expense. In fact, it generates revenue. And at the same time, also provides the community with essentially skilled workforce for adults. We just launched it this year. It started in January. Already have 108 adults signed up, so we're off to an extremely good start. Now BVTI, that was first of all $1,040,000 from the state to start the program. We're already looking at round 2 for us to add another 4 programs to the 5 we already have. And so, 2 things that BVTI does. We're able to cut some expenses because if it's one of the, we started with HVAC, plumbing, electrical, machining, and welding. So those 5 programs benefit, they're able to, let me say it differently. BVTI picks up a lot of supplies and materials that allows our day programs to cut their budget. Okay, so the other thing it does is it generates tuition revenue. And you'll see here the 30,510 is essentially revenue we took from BVTI. Now, it was born in January. It's all of 3-4 months old, and I said, you can't steal money from a baby. You don't do that, right? So, picked its pocket a little bit, but I want this program to grow and get bigger and bigger. I think in the future you'll be seeing, 300,000 in revenue from it once it gets up to full scale. For now, we just took a little pinch, but it did also save a lot on the expense side, right? So, and it's a win-win. 108 adults who were getting certified and trained in those trades, plus a dozen or so courses like
Personal enrichment courses, understanding social security, floral arrangement, and we see those types of courses growing in the future.
yeah, yoga, things like that. So what we call personal enrichments. Personal enrichments, and then you have the other side of it, which is the 200-hour certified trade courses. Okay, so I'm happy to see that. Also, you might notice underneath that cosmetology, productivity, auto tech productivity, all those productivities. Those are the shops where the kids perform a service or create a product, and basically we tapped into their productivity accounts. They're essentially working towards their own, paying for their own education, right? The deal we make with them is that if we take your productivity, we're going to spend it on your program. It's not like we raid their account and spend it on the whole school, but all of those programs that have the ability to create revenue are helping to fund themselves. Okay, so that was helpful. That's, a summary of the reductions we made there. The next page 24 is a summary of the grants to, as of February 17th, it's actually more close to 2.5 million. Kind of, 2 million is about average for us in grants. We're very aggressive with that. Of course, as a new superintendent, I wanted to break all records, right? But it didn't happen. It's just 2.5 million.
We had 2.86 last year. So.
See, I'm already getting it. So,
Hey, you brought it to the table to get it.
here's one that I want you to know about, and you would have heard Dr. Fitzpatrick say this. We don't just chase grants for the sake of getting grants or trying to set a new record. If it pulls us off mission, if it's not right for us, we won't go for it. So one grant that would have really done the trick here, the state of Massachusetts, when they implemented the new lottery system, also made a commitment to increase the number of seats. So great, you have a lottery, you're gonna just jumble it up and different kids are gonna get the same seats, but you're still short on seats. So they made a $100 million commitment to increase the number of career technical seats in the state. We were all compelled, we meaning schools like Valley Tech, were all compelled to look at how we could expand seats. And each school could get up to $5 million for that effort. So, and they're pretty strong on this. So we, in good faith, due diligence, looked at it, what we would have to do. Now, Valley Tech, over the years, I remember I started there were 600 kids, then 800, then 1,000. We did the renovation. I said we'd have 1,200. One day I said, no way. And we currently sit at 1,250. Well, over the years, we squeezed a sponge. Every closet, every meeting room was turned into a classroom or reconfigured walls to make new shops or whatever it may be. So it's not easy to say you're going to expand seats at Valley Tech. We also fill it as much as as possible, given the waiting list. So every teacher has a full schedule. There's no fat left on the bone there. So in order for us to increase by, let's say, a student, you need another math, English, science, social studies, a guidance counselor, you gotta do a fifth lunch. And you're gonna need two or three more shop teachers. So, okay, I'm looking at $1.25 million of ongoing expense in salary and wage. So I can't get bigger by one. If we're gonna get bigger, we're gonna do it by at least 100, maybe 150, right, to make it sustainable. So we said about it, as Desi wanted us to do, and we looked at what it would take to build probably about a 15,000 square foot building in the back. You move your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical, those are the three most demand shops back there. Take their space inside, convert that to academic space, and there you go. You can now fit roughly another 100 in anyway. Well, our cost to do that was, we figured, $10 million. So, okay, you did your homework. Can you imagine if I came to you today and I said, good news, guys, I set a new record, I got $7.5 million, but $5 million of it is a grant to expand seats. And I just need you to match it. You haven't even paid for the $10 million roof yet, but I just need you to match this $5 million so I can add another 150 seats. It's just not the right time. It's not right for our valley. It's not right for our school. So of course we said no to that. But there's an example of a grant that we did not think was the right thing to pursue. Maybe someday, but not now. It's just the wrong time for that. So I just share that with you to kind of give you how we are judicious in what grants we pursue. Another one on here that's kind of new is the in-kind contributions at the bottom. We do get a lot of equipment, cars, things like that donated to us. As we try to ramp up asking for donations, we're much more likely to get those in the form of in-kind donations than cash. And so we've been doing that. So we just started really quantifying some of this equipment that we've been blessed with, I'll say. Okay. The last page here, 25, is I told you at the beginning here, the comparison of us to the other Voc schools in terms of per pupil, and that typo at the bottom of 1.25%. It should be 1.25 times the cost of the average sender. So it's just nice to see where we stack up there. There's a lot of variables that go into that. I can see some that are way up near the top that are actually at minimum contribution. It depends on the school, the situation, the students that are there, and so forth. So and there's no prize for being at the bottom or the top of this thing, but it's just like, it's nice to know kind of where you stand. Okay. We've been as low as I think 5th, but we never really moved too much in that. The last page is something I think you're well aware of, is that as a regional school, all of our expenses are baked into one request. Essentially, it all shows up in our per pupil, and that's not unlike any other regional, but sometimes I'll say I'm envious of schools that are within a town, because you're able to partner, and that's a great thing. But when you are a regional, you have to make sure you've taken care of all aspects in one request. Okay? And that's the budget. Happy to answer any questions for you or anything you like.
So, for general purposes, what is the increase in salaries and wages compared to last year for an average?
1.2% increase in the salary and wage line for the teachers. So in other words, that you're talking about the contract?
Well, just in general.
Yep.
Administration, teachers, and all of that stuff. Is there like a number? It's like increasing 3%, 2% overall for.
Overall, I know the teachers are 1.2. It's right around 2.5. Would be a good estimation of all of I'd say support staff all the way through administration, would be within about a 2.5% increase overall.
Is that taking out the 8 positions or no?
No, it's not. That's with them in.
Okay, because I was like looking at administration, 1,000. There's a 4.5% increase. It's almost entirely in salaries and wages, but
Yeah.
no change in full-time equivalents. Are these?
Yeah,
contract
I
or-
can explain some of that. So,
Okay.
a bit of some reorganizing. So, for example, Dr. Connors was previously a vocational director. When I moved up to superintendent, one thing I did was I was the assistant superintendent / principal. We're one of the last schools to attempt such a thing, and I felt bad for whoever was going to take my job seriously, because you start getting pulled in 2 different directions, and suffer the possibility of not doing either one well. So as we thought forward here, there was no change in the FTEs, but promoted Dr. Connors to Assistant Superintendent Curriculum Director from Voc Director, and let the principal be a principal. So categorically, you'll see some changes there because he's now reported on the district side where he would have been on the school side before. So some of those percentages get, I don't want to say misleading, but there's some categorical shifting going on there. So we're at the same, FTEs in terms of administration. The other thing that's a little challenging about VOTEC schools is that we have a lot of regulations that regular schools don't have. So you have to have co-op coordinators, you have to have licensed voc directors, and so on and so forth down the line to be compliant. And so I've looked at other VOTEC schools in comparison, and it's not unusual that we all have pretty much the same setup because it's what you're required to have. You have to have a director just for practical nursing, things like that. And so you see that be pretty consistent, VOTEC school to VOTEC school because of regulation requirement.
So is the other one I see? There's instructional supervision. There's a decrease of 1.5 FTE, but an increase of 85,000. So that's a similar. That kind of where the other part of that comes in.
That would be part of it, and also that we are looking at how we do special ed. We were also combining, one student services director, so doing all of guidance, 504s, and special education, and we were splitting that role in half. Basically, special ed on one side, guidance, and 504s on the other. So again, some restructuring or reorganizing there. That was another one of those that we couldn't find one left in all the land who was still trying to cover both bases with one person. And we've had quite an uptick in both, not unique to Valley Tech, but student mental health has kind of skyrocketed in the last 5 or 6 years. That puts a lot on the guidance side of things. And then special ed, we're right around 19.5%. So I think we're just slightly north of the aggregate in the valley in the 13 or 11 school districts. So we've had a lot more of that.
So it kind of goes along with the 2 FTE increase in the school-based health center.
Yes, you got it. It's been a challenge. I would find it hard to imagine that Grafton schools aren't having a similar experience. It seems to be, ubiquitous. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate how thorough this is. I was like writing down questions as you were going and then getting to them and crossing them off.
I'll take
So,
that. That's
There's a
good
lot of
thing.
information in here.
Other people say I just talk too much, so I'm somewhere between those two.
I had a quick question on the short-term interest.
Yes.
So we're saying 150, and the previous year is 5. Like, how do I think of that? Because I guess if it's short-term, in my mind, I think year over year should be somewhat similar, right? Because we're thinking 12 months out, right? So
Yes.
is that the way to think of it, or am I missing something?
No, I can explain that to you, hopefully, in a way that makes sense. So, in this past year, we basically, our treasurer, requested to put in $5,000 in case there was any kind of borrowing expenses, related to the roof project. Knowing that, you know, we weren't likely to start bonding and, sorry, doing bands. Borrowing. And when you borrow, you either borrow short or you borrow long,
Yep.
right? So that's what they would refer to as. So where we know we are going to be engaging in bands in FY '27, we have to put the interest only. So in '26, there was no such thing, right? So the 5,000 there, honestly, I don't know what exactly kind of fees you can have and so forth, but he felt the 5,000 was adequate, but that wasn't anticipating paying any interest or anything. Prior to that, we were paying off the last year of the 20-year bond for the 2004 renovation. So we basically are in our second year here with no debt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they may not even use that money last year.
No, I
The
don't
5,000,
think so.
yeah.
I don't think so. I think it was, they didn't want to have zero, I know that. And I don't know if that was application considerations or account creations or whatever.
They still have 3 months to go. So.
Yeah,
And I see, that when we do finally bond, I see that you're debt exempt. You voted the exemption in this town, so.
Thank you. And then maybe quickly on the investment income.
Yes.
Obviously, we pointed to like a decrease in the rates, but like, does that jive though? From 2024, we say 55, then 25, 26, we say 130, then we're coming back down to 70. So we're seeing an increase and then a decrease again, year over year over year. So it's, does that like make sense if we're saying it's just interest rate driven? I would think it'd be somewhat consistent because I think rates have come down from last year.
No, it's a very good question. So if you back up, first of all, if you back up to the 55 there, we actually went to our treasurer and said, you know, we think you're sandbagging us here. We think we're going to make a little more than that. And he said, yeah, you're right. And so he adjusted it up.
Yep.
And he was actually pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It came in about right where he thought. And that was, you know, when we went up to, I don't have it in front of me here, was it 130?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then he just cooled it back off, reflective of what he anticipates will happen with interest. But 2 years ago, it was light.
Yeah. Okay.
It was
That
light.
makes sense.
Yeah, and everybody's interest went through the roof in 24, right? Then
Yeah.
24 into 25 interest rates were
Yeah,
out of
so,
control.
so we convinced him to raise it, and it lasted a year, and then he said, I gotta lower it back down. It's over.
yeah, the amount of money you have in your account
Yeah,
will change over time. too.
sure does.
So it's,
Yeah.
quick question for you on the Chapter 71 money. You were talking about an 80-20 split.
Yes. Let me try to make that make sense. I know.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how 1.8 million and 8.43 is 80-20.
It's not.
Oh, okay.
I did the same thing earlier today. I called the business manager and said, hey, this doesn't make sense here. It's more like 64-36 or something. Okay. No. The Chapter 71, the 1.824 is based on our prior year's final transportation bill, and they base the 80% on that. But the 843 is on what we know is contracted for FY27. So you're kind of in arrears on the 80% reimbursement, but you're in the forward on because it's a known. We're actually in the fifth year of a 5-year contract with Vendetti. So we will be going out to bid for a new bus contract. But I caught that same thing earlier.
So the 1.8 million is your total spend for last year?
No, that is the what
Reimbursement.
we can anticipate the reimbursement being because it's 80% of what last year's total was. Does that make sense?
So our total cost the 1.8 plus the 843
Blowing
below.
Chip's mind right now.
No, it's just, I try to make the math work out right off, it looks.
Our
but it's-
costs
I'm
are
fi-
going
I'm sorry,
up.
it's state math.
Yes, it's
It
state
is.
math.
And they said accounting's not fun.
No, that's exactly right.
Okay.
And I did the same thing earlier today, about 2 hours ago. I said, this math isn't mathing.
So then maybe the state regional chapter 71, 1824, you would take that, you would sum that with the 843 below to get to an approximate total cost, right?
That's is what is getting applied. Now, I'll make it even more confusing. That 1824 is based on an 80% assumption
Of the prior,
of the prior year's
prior
total.
Yep,
Okay.
But it's not
Now,
guaranteed.
but it's not exactly.
Yeah,
it's a-
the cherry sheet's not.
but just earlier today, somebody introduced a bill to move regional transportation to 100%. And I've seen that trick before. It's not going to last. Then it's going to go through the process and it's going to get dropped back down. Probably bounce a few times, and we're probably going to come out, maybe if we're lucky, 85. This year's interesting because so many schools and towns are talking about how inadequate school funding was from the state, that you may get a better bump than the 80% that was in the governor's budget because they want to show that they're
Listening.
yes. If that's the case, then that 1.8 million will be using a different factor. Say it's 90%. That would be wonderful. But it's still going to be 90% of what your last year's total was. That's what you'll get to roll forward into 27. And then if there's a windfall there, we park it in that stabilization, and we'll apply it to you at 28.
Which is currently at 0. So if you are you concerned about it being less than 80 or no because of all of that?
If
that's
it
going
is,
on?
we live with it.
It's
Yeah.
happened too.
Yes, it
Up and
has.
down in the 70s.
Yep. That can happen.
When is the new contract for transportation next year?
It
sorry.
starts next year.
Starts next year.
Yep. This is we're in the final year of the 3 year, and was that 27 to 29 is the new.
So 8.43 is 20% of your expected cost for the year. So your expected costs for the year are 4.2 million,
Let me check that.
which means 1.8% would be much less than half of your actual reimbursement, or less than half of your actual costs. So.
Yeah, I'd want to check that before I answer you on that one, if I may.
Okay.
And if you want a very precise number, I'm happy to just send you the answer once I get back to with my business manager and say, give me the actual total cost for transportation prior year. That might be a better way to answer you there, Mr. Marr. Yeah, it looks like, I'm looking at school services, 3,000 transportation, 2.710, I'm looking at page 10, with the summary there. I'm assuming that is a good total number without, what'd you call it? School decimath? Right? That should be your total.
Yeah. The 1.8 plus
Total
43.
transportation. Okay. Page 10.
Okay.
I think the percentage numbers
So
do.
contracted services plus other brings you to 2.7 million. 20% of that is 542,000.
But I think it's the 2.7 million minus the 843.
So it looks like it's about 30% is the budgeted there.
Yeah, 'cause it's the 20%
Horribly far off.
from last year plus the increase for this year to make up the gap.
Right. Right.
So I also want to just ask some future casting questions as well.
sure.
I know that we are moving away, that the state has mandated that there's now a lottery system for admissions moving forward in the next academic year. Are you splitting up the lottery by population in each town?
Yeah, so I actually got a chance to share what we'll call the apportionment with Evan. And then we did.
Could not think of that word before. Apportionment.
It's a good
Does
SAT
it roll off the
It's a
tongue?
great-
Yeah,
It's such a normal everyday word.
It's like every day you use
well,
that.
It's really not that hard, but I don't know. It just wasn't there. I was like, I know I was in that meeting. I know it starts with an A.
anyhow, it's not exactly straightforward, but it's very easy to follow when it's presented. We did just turn it into a video format because we've been out to 6, 7, 8 times, trying to fill in anybody who was, interested in had an hour to kill. And really, the video I think is 30 minutes. Yeah. But usually when we present it and discuss it, it's usually about an hour-long discussion. But I'll tell you it this way in concept and just quickly and happy. Actually, Miranda, my assistant, was going to send that out to all town managers, finance committees, and boards of selectmen. So you'll probably get an email from us with a YouTube link that will walk you through all of it. But just for here and now, I'll give you a quick summary of this.
Just the highlights.
Just the highlights. We needed in the merit-based system, state-approved merit-based system, it was students would be scored on grades, discipline, attendance, and their interview. Right, and whatever your score was, you went into all 750 applicants, and we would accept students and down usually to about a score point of cutoff scores about 84 till we're full. And that was how voc admissions worked across the state for, well, as long as I've been in the business, a long time. And last fall, the Department of Ed, the Board of Ed, actually voted to move to a lottery system for forevermore, right, until further notice. Whether you like it, don't like it, think it's good, not, it doesn't matter at this point. We have to implement it. And that's kind of our attitude towards it. Hey, we're going to make the most of it here. So, but you're now into a statistical process that is very different than a merit-based process. So some things have to happen right away. Suddenly apportionment matters, okay? Well, you're
What I
drawing-
always say.
He has, it's true, he says it all the
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
It's totally different animal here, right? With drawing a lottery. So, of the 26 vocational technical schools in the state, roughly half of them had apportionment in their regional agreement. The other half of them do not. Make no reference to how many seats Grafton would have, or Milford, or so on and so forth. So we're in the portion, the half that don't. So part of the discussion about implementing a lottery was that, hey, you're gonna, really cause some problems here if you just take a random spinning of the wheel here and let it go. So they said, no problem. Any school, regional school like us that doesn't have apportionment in your regional agreement, you can create it within your admissions policy. So we did that. Now the state said, you don't have to do anything. Just spin that wheel. Okay. They said, no. That was predictable chaos and disruption, right, to do that. So we went about creating apportionment. First step, how big is Grafton? How many seats should Grafton have? So went through a number of ways we could determine that. What we settled on was the number of 8th graders was the most relevant. Some towns getting bigger, some towns are getting smaller, some towns have lots of little kids, some towns have lots of big kids. It's all over the place. Most applicable was the number of 8th graders. That's a little spiky too, so we took a 4-year rolling average of that based on October 1 numbers, smooths it out. So we got a very smooth snapshot, if you will, of how big each town is by way of its number of 8th graders on a rolling 4-year average. Okay, there's your ideal. Now we say, well, wait a minute, let's look at the enrollment trend. What is each town, if you will, accustomed to sending? Again, year by year, that's got a whipsaw to it. So we said, let's take a 4-year average of the enrollment trend and smooth it out. Now you have ideal and you have what's been happening, right? Two different things. We call this foundation target and we call this enrollment trend. Match them up and you say, okay, what's the delta, the enrollment delta? So are you on target? I would say about half the towns are right on target-ish. Some are way over and some are way under. So I'll say over prescribed, under prescribed, and a bunch in the middle that are pretty close to where they would be if you use those two metrics. Grafton is way under prescribed. The most extreme case, actually, of all 13. You actually surprised me with how big you are, with 3,000 kids, second only to Milford. I know Mr. Yitz has been around long enough, because I remember this too, that there were times when people wanted more kids from Grafton at BVT, then it went to, no, we want less. And I remember it coming back to more, and I think we're at 2 oscillations, I remember.
Yeah.
But that goes back like 30 years.
Yeah. And
So-
to the Board of Selectmen and explain why we didn't have more kids from Grafton going.
So, and there was some time, this is common when you guys built the new Grafton school, beautiful. You see the number come way down. I don't think it ever came back from that oscillation point.
Back 2012 or so, we were at 115 and right around 100. And then when the new school opened up, we dropped down as low as 56.
Wow.
Because everybody was excited to stay in town for the new school. Recently, in 2025, we were at 104, and now today we're at 92.
And Matt, did you have that? What's their target?
Their target is
Fasten your seatbelts, everybody.
Drum roll, please.
I have it if you need it.
Grafton should be at 184.
What?
Yikes. So, we also realize that you can't do that to,
That's literally double.
or a school.
Like, no, let it.
So, for example, Milford's going up by 70. You guys, I think, what are they, 90 short? 89 short. And then you have towns in the opposite scenario that are going down 54 and so forth. And this was why we said we cannot just spin the wheel. You need to.
You'd have this every year.
Yeah, correct.
Yes. And I said, I'll never pass a budget again. It was my first year. I was
But if
You were
you look,
looking good the first year and it went down to 2s.
right.
So I do have a question about this with the numbers at the start. How does school choice affect the number of kids that we have in the school? How many kids do we have in Grafton in 8th grade that are in school choice?
Well, I assure you, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, but like if we had
But
like
Jay
a
will be
huge
here
number
tomorrow,
of
we
kids
can
that
ask.
are in
Yeah.
town that
Right.
are skewing numbers of,
Well, I also
A
think we have a
representative
lot
amount
of
from
kids who
town.
end up going to like St. John's and other private schools, probably more than Milford.
So I can speak to that very quickly. So we actually, again, we said we're looking for the best metric, right? How big is Grafton? So we actually talked to some folk. We looked at the census. That wasn't doing it. It's not only every 10 years and you have a midpoint, but it doesn't necessarily tell you how many school age kids you have. What we liked about the October 1 number is anybody, anywhere can go on DESI's website. It's there, you can see it, it's verifiable. You can look it up for every town, etc. But we did ask the good folks at the SIMS department, that's a student information department, they could create a possibly.
So-
They said they have the capability to create a report for us. It'll be a custom report that basically says how many school-age children are there from this zip code, and do it for all 13 towns. And to your point, you're gonna then get not just the kids who choiced in or choiced out, but all your homeschoolers, private schoolers, charter schoolers, I don't know if I'm missing anybody, and so forth, and get a more accurate count of how many eighth graders there are spread out across the land. The short version there is that that was a possibility for the future, but everybody has some net of either kids coming or going or and so forth. And so perfect no, using October 1 school counts, but with the other understanding that everyone has some degree of that. Also, when you
I was gonna say, we also were given 6 weeks to create this. So we did the best we could.
yeah, it's revisable every year because it's part of the admissions policies. So Mr. Yitz and the 12 other school committee members will reauthorize every year. So if we want to tweak it, the formula, if you will, we can do that.
Over the past 4 years, we have had 245 applicants from Grafton. So,
On average a year? Is that what you're saying, or?
no, so the 185 would be the total class enrollment for a 4-year period in BVT. Over the last 4 years, we have had 245 students. It stays roughly the same every year.
I can tell you, you have typically 62,
Yeah.
5-year, average is 62 applicants a year. Okay. So let me finish the story.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So we just, the goal here was to try to make something that was fair, predictable. That was one thing I was hoping that we could tell town managers was, hey, no matter what it is, at least you can pretty much bank on that, plan on that for the foreseeable future. Never did like the fact that, you're up, you're down, you're up, you're down. And so here we go. So we thought there was never the point, well, the whole point was to not create chaos. So we decided to slow it down. And so we took the delta, of whatever it is, the fastest you
89.
the 89. Well, the fastest you could go is 25%. So in other words, in the next 4 classes, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, right, we're going to adjust to this 90 kids in 4 bites. So we slowed it down to a 12.5% pace. Basically cut it in half. What that does is it predictably says next year you're going to have a plus 13, give or take. It's not a perfect math because kids move, they come, they go. And I was pretty forward with Evan to say, listen, this is year 1. I can predict you're going to have 13 seats. We're going to run a lottery in all 13 towns. So we need, the whole point of this exercise is, well, what's the seat allocation? How many? You have to look at how many seniors are leaving or students are exiting. So you got to replace that number, and then you have to add in what's the adjustment we're trying to get to. So that's the plus 13. We'll determine how many seats there are in the lottery for Grafton applicants. No town doesn't have enough applicants, so that if anybody's curious about that. And we basically tried to take this and as slowly and smoothly roll into this new system as being as just the least disruptive we can be. Whether it's, again, kids coming or going, you also would predictably have some adjustment to make it the local school system. And so, there were some towns who really, for example, had a lot of kids losing seats. You have to be mindful of, as I say, the hat that you're wearing. Sometimes people with the financial hat on will say, great, we have a reduction in seats. But if you're a parent and you want junior to go to Valley Tech, I could tell you, I got a lot of folks not too happy with us right now because they're realizing that they have fewer seats, fewer opportunities to get in, Now you can boil it right down to the odds. What are my odds of getting in when you know how many applicants there are? So it's a very strange new process. I'm not going to say I'm for it or against it. It is what it is. But given the rules, we tried to come up with the least disruptive, fairest possible way to do it. And what I've said to people, and I encourage you to watch the whole video if you're so inclined and interested, that we are very open that if somebody has a better way or a suggestion of how we could do this better, please let us know, because every year we can revise this thing a bit.
And it just, I'm gonna slam the people in Boston again, but it seems like a typical State House brain fart. Because now you're in the position of having to say, okay, you town, you're 30 people over, so we're not gonna take any from you for a couple of years until we flush the people out the other end.
Yeah, and we tried to mitigate that the best we could.
I would think that that percentage would apply to the incoming freshman class and not the school as a whole. But so that it's because if you apply it to the school as a whole and people leave and stuff, your incoming people are going to change year to year. Or if it is, you get to bring in this many new people each year, and then it's consistent year to year. I think that seems that would help some of that. Once you get to a steady state, it's going to take a while to get there.
It takes 4 years to get to a steady state.
The steady state is somewhat of an unknown right now. We have a very low rate, maybe just one or two or just a handful of kids that leave BVT during their 4 years wanting to maybe go back to their hometown high school, something like that. Most of the admission process that we had previously was focused on students that wanted to be there. The grade part, I think, was only about 20% of the overall consideration in the old formula. So we had students that wanted to be at BVT with very little numbers dropping out. Being a VOTEC, if we get a significantly higher amount of students that drop out their sophomore, junior, or even their senior year, we can't replace a lot of those students because they've already missed a year, maybe 2 years of vocational instruction. So you can't come into a machining program your junior year and then just fit into the class and
go from there.
Right. We couldn't get enough hours in to qualify for the state anyways to be able to take a student like that. So if we get a higher number of because in the lottery, I mean, we might get more students that are just throwing their name in there to see what happens and check us out and maybe leave after a year and a half, and then we can't replace that student. So, we might have overall smaller class sizes graduating because of the different type of mix that we have now, being a lottery system.
I imagine that you get some loss because people move and that kind of stuff.
Oh, normal, attrition, sure.
Not just people that I don't want to do this anymore, but people that leave the area or move. So, I was thinking if it's, you have this many, you have 1250 divided by 4 seats, plus or minus 2 or 3 each year, then I think doing that as a percentage would be smoother than if you have 3 people from Grafton move out, then suddenly you have 3 more seats coming in the next year. This is all I was thinking with that. So.
And we looked at it a number of different ways, but Dr. Connors is famous for saying, if we were a brand new school, starting from scratch, this is easy. Take 184, divide by 4, that's your seats, and it's just smooth. And Evan can bank on that like the sun rising. Okay, but
it's all about apportionment.
When you start with a school, the schools, 13 of them that are all over the place in terms of their relative size, and now you're forced into a statistical process. How do you do that fairly, right? And there's always going to be in every town. I tried to explain this to Dr. Connors because I said sometimes people are just going to be mad at you, man. Even within a town, there are some people who say, I wish it was faster, I wish it was slower, I wish it was more, I wish it was less. And so, it's impossible, let alone 13 towns, but, sorry.
No, so it's a pure lottery system, or do you have a choice to make it a weighted lottery?
It is weighted,
Okay.
okay, and would you like me to explain what weighted means? Happy to. Want to explain it?
So there are 3 possible tickets that can be earned. You get 1 ticket automatically. The second ticket, or you can earn a second ticket, if you have not missed more than 27 days of school in the previous 270 days.
Okay,
So 10%,
yeah,
in which case you wouldn't be eligible for promotion anyway.
So that's a free ticket.
So, okay.
You wouldn't have graduated if you got more than that.
Right.
And the third ticket can be earned if you have not committed and been convicted of committing a felony in school.
You
In
can commit one out of school.
out of
It's not
school.
in
So 13-year-old felons, a very common demographic,
school.
literally
Yeah,
everywhere.
probably get the conviction.
So you could say they made the lowest possible bar.
wow, that's
Again,
amazing.
if you had, you might say it was 27.
So everybody gets the free
Such a
tickets.
Right.
before
Well,
it's
law,
already
so-
been-
So it's not
Unless
really
they're
a
an
weighted
axe
system.
murderer.
Everybody starts with 3,
Ludicrous.
and there's some extraordinary circumstance that you didn't get all 3.
So I mean, BVT
it's-
is, you've built your reputation on, you know, and most of that is obviously your administration, but also the students that you admit, like you said, they want to be there. That's part of
Correct.
the interview, is getting to know these kids and knowing if they're serious about it. Do they actually want to come? This is a nightmare.
Thank you
Like,
for
it's just a
recognizing that.
nightmare.
Seriously?
I know I'm
can
stating the
apply-
obvious, but
You can't get 1 ticket because you didn't graduate, but you can still apply and get the other 2 tickets.
Yes,
That's
Yes.
good, solid thinking.
yes, this is true. And to your point, concerned about it.
Yeah.
Particularly from a school culture standpoint.
yes.
We have what I would refer to as a lot of positive peer pressure or peer encouragement. That usually when freshmen come in, they're usually with the juniors on that cycle. Sophomores and seniors are together, but usually it's the juniors in somewhat of a mentoring capacity. They're like, "Hey, Anthony, we don't do that yet.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't work here." And they
You hear a lot of that, yeah.
positively, and plus it's a culture of professionalism. Like, hey, you're in this shop now, you have to act like a professional mechanic or whatever. And so there's concern that could change. Hope not. We might have to ramp it up in terms of trying to get students that are coming in to understand or appreciate, conform to, if you will, the expectations of a culture of professionalism. It's not year 1 you're really worried about, it's year 4,
Right.
when now you have 4 years of lottery admissions, and like a true lottery, there's a lot being gambled here,
Yeah.
all right? And I don't want to,
So frustrating. So
I
frustrating.
don't think it's the kind of thing you should be gambling with, but
No.
some folks had different thought on that.
Especially for the student that, wants to be in the trades and maybe has worked with a parent since they were small, doing things around the house, working on the car. We don't get to hear that and have that be a part of how we accept students, so.
Well, I think you can probably expect to see what other Voc schools get as far as graduation rates and that kind of thing, because the only thing really separating BVT was your admissions process and who you were bringing in. I mean,
Yeah, I
I
mean-
just,
We shall see.
yeah.
I always, what do I got if I'm not positive and I'm not, thinking about, this will be fine, Evan. Don't worry. We have to take the high road.
Yeah.
And we might have to work harder at some things that came a little easier to us before, but it is what it is. And I can assure you that no amount of belly aching over it's going to make it better. So we're going to lean into it. And, to Mr. Hitz's point, I'm also concerned that students may not have as much skin in the game, so to speak, right? They previously merit mattered, right? Like I was going to keep my grades up because I want to go there. I'm going to not miss school because I want to get into Valley Tech and so on and so forth.
And not commit felonies.
Yeah.
In school.
You can do it outside of school though.
Right.
It's only one
Don't go
ticket.
crazy.
And so, now I just don't know. Time will tell, but we're gonna work hard at trying to preserve what we're known for and what we've always, found. Really, it's the mission and the value of our whole school system. So I hope we hang on to it.
So,
No, I'm
maybe so you said
flabbergasted.
half of the Voc schools have
Apportionment.
apportionment.
Apportionment, Skip. Apportionment, yeah. It's a pretty
How
common
do
word.
they do with their graduation rates and stuff like that? Are they similar or?
Typically, there is very low dropout rates in all Voc Tech schools, so that seems to be a common trait. We've been extraordinary with that, with 100% or zero dropouts, but typically you find that is characteristic of just about all of them. Whether they have apportionment or not, it was really just a blueprint for how they created the regional agreement. Right now, I'm kind of wishing we had it, because everybody would be right on target where they're supposed to be. It'd be easy.
Yeah.
I also know that just totally random, spin the drum and see whatever happens. We did that math, and what was the mean?
Average
the median?
range was 26. So
26.
at any town could be plus or minus 26 in any given year
Wow.
due to the number of applications.
So if you look at the number of applications, they vary quite a bit. So we knew that if we just did a random draw, that we would predictably be coming in every year and telling you were either up or down. Median was 26, right? So quite the whipsaw.
Yeah.
No, that's
Smaller
not
towns might
sustainable.
not have any.
Sure.
The Millville,
Yeah, you could get towns with zero, right? That could happen. So, we're trying to do the best with what we got, right? Or the hand we've been dealt, if we want to talk.
230 next year,
Right.
essentially. When you think about budgeting.
I think one of the things that has come up in the past with this, with like the merit-based version, is there's kind of this idea that there's like this, segment of students who don't do as well in a typical traditional classroom setting, who might do better in the trades and might not have had the best shot at getting in on the merit-based system. And I kind of feel like the idea here was that this would give them more of an opportunity. It feels like it's like not a fully thought through idea. Like if there were a way to kind of identify not necessarily the students who have, earned it the most, but the students who would be the most benefited from it. I feel like that's the idea that people were aiming for, and then somehow ended up with just random lottery.
And over the years, I think, correct me, was it 15% or 20% that grades counted?
Oh, we kept dropping.
We kept dropping it.
I think it might have even been 15% in the last few years. So we actively dropped the weight of grades in favor of the recommendation from the sending school system, the attendance and disciplinary recommendation from the sending school system. So if a school system had excused absences, we didn't care. Whatever your policy was, you send us that information. And then the interview, which was on a rubrics that they were all conducted the same, and the grade part of it was actually probably the smallest portion
It's the least
of the way we
The
used to
interview
do
was
that.
the biggest at 30.
The problem now, the way I see it anyways, is since we get so many applications, that like the students that you were talking about, just by the numbers that they're going against in a random draw, it probably drops their chances from getting in. Just because we get 700, one year I think we had 900 students going for 320 spaces. So if you, just the numbers there, they're going to get outweighed in just the luck of the draw.
So it was a 10-year discussion, if I can call it that. that finally culminated in, well, let's vote and do the lottery. But all good points to yours. I can tell you at Valley Tech, we really didn't care about grade. That was the least important. The interview was nice because I'll give you the answer to the quiz right now. Tell me why you want to come. Because we want to know that you were interested in one of our trades and you know, we could do something for you. That
We'd
was,
get the random student that would say, my dad wants me to come, but I really want to go to Grafton High.
yeah, they would say that. Had a nice lady once who told us that she wanted to be a concert pianist. That's wonderful, lovely kid.
We don't have a
But
band yet.
we don't have piano shows. You know,
So
and
kind
so
of
that was helpful
Yeah.
to know that.
kind of related to that. Is it one application for and lottery for the entire school, or are there applications for different areas? Like someone wants to go into cosmetology, or someone wants to go into shop.
Not yet.
Is
Not
that
yet. But
something
that could,
that's being
that
discussed?
could happen.
Okay.
Right. Initially, so it'll be a lottery by each town, so you get in. But there is the possibility that the state could take it further, and to say that your shop selection at the end of exploratory is determined by a lottery also.
Oh, that's not quite where I was
That's
going.
gonna
Was
really
the
to drop out.
application up front? I didn't.
No.
So
No.
that's not something
The
that.
state still mandates that all freshman students have to go through a 120-hour exploratory process so they learn about different careers.
Okay, so that's a state mandate.
That is.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
any Voc school that has more than 5 programs, or any school that has more than 5 Voc programs has to have exploratory.
And we have quite a number of students that when they first interview say, oh, I want to go into electrical, but after they go through exploratory, they change and say, I want to go into culinary or something like that. So they really do find out what they want to do. You know, we try to collect the students that are interested in a vocational profession, but they do change between what they think they want and what they actually see.
50%.
Is
50% change their mind from when they come in the door to what they finally choose.
Like when you go to college, does anyone
It's-
know what they want to do?
exactly.
Well, I mean,
Sure.
they're only
Sure.
they're eighth
Sometimes it's
graders.
equally, they'll explore plumbing and that's their new favorite thing. Electrical the next week.
Okay, we'll take one or two more comments and then wrap up your session. Thank you, gentlemen.
yeah.
Kyle.
Is there any thought on how I don't want to say advertise, but how you position, I guess, the application process now, and are you planning on changing it to almost make it? Because before you had the interview to kind of weed out, but now you kind of almost need to, I say discourage, but like if people don't want to be there, you kind of want to get them to not even apply. Is there a way how you're even changing?
Mr. Quirk.
I mean,
To the contrary, we now have guidelines for how many open houses we will have, how many information sessions, and so on. So it's all pretty scripted for us.
Okay.
Right. So we don't. I'm joking with you.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't really get the choice to do that.
Sure.
We've never had to really advertise. We always. So it's interesting. Mr. Yates said one time we had 900 applicants. What's pretty fascinating about it is it's every year it's about 40% of the students in the 13 towns that apply. Today it's about 700 because there are that many fewer 8th graders in the valley. But it's always been around 40%. So we haven't ever had to advertise. In fact, we don't like saying no to all those kids. So we were always kind of trusted the fact that the ones who found us are the ones who really wanted to come, right? And we're going to stick with that because we still have way more applicants than we have, seats, and it's just a different process now for how they get selected. The state's wisdom is, remember I told you about that $5 million grant? They just want us to make more seats until there's no more kids left on the waiting list. That's kind of their fix.
But they're not gonna give any more money
Right.
for that, other
Well,
than
They
to
get no.
part
They'll
of it
they'll
to
give it to
fund
Grafton.
the-
So if Grafton wants to start a Chapter 74 program, that money's available to Grafton too. What we said is, hey, there's plenty of room in the pool. Come on in. We'll help you start the program, build the program. Happy to do it if that's what you want to do. And they make that. I think they're going to go for another round 2, but probably not for another year. They just did, I think, 75 million in awards. and they're gonna put that money up again, but they're encouraging any school, to start chapter 74 programs. As long as you stay under 5, you don't need VOC directors, co-op directors, VOC certified principal, VOC certified superintendent, gets extensive after you go over 5. But we're happy to do it. If you're interested, point you in the right direction.
Thank you for that generous offer. All right, any more questions? And I don't see any online. All right.
Thank you for the opportunity
Thank you,
again.
Mr. Yates,
and
Mr. Steele, Dr.
Thank you.
Connors.
Thank-
Really, really appreciate your time
appreciate
this
it,
evening.
Have a nice night, everybody.
You too.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
And, helpful to know for next year as well.
Sure is.
It's more information than we usually know, 365 days out, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense why the budget looked the way it did.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Second to last item on the agenda is the individual to prepare the state of the town message. Do we have any volunteers?
Greg just volunteered to plug the new numbers into what he's done the last 2 years. So
I didn't do the last one. I did 3 of the last 4, but not the last one.
I wrote the last one.
Just shorten it up a little, that's all.
Well, that's a good vote of
That-
no
that should be-
confidence,
that should be-
is what I
that
just
should-
heard. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That should be the status quo. It should be down to 2 pages.
Mine was 2 pages. I had a
Okay.
lot to say.
You should do a lottery.
All right, I'll do it again. I will write it again. And I promise I'll make it shorter.
You want me
It
to
was
take
too
mine out
long.
from 2000?
No, thank you.
And I'll
The world
change
has changed
change
a
the
lot in
numbers?
26
I think it's
years.
a little different, probably.
No, the issues are still kind of the same.
No.
I guess you might be right there.
That's probably true. All right, I'll do it. Would anyone like to discuss any relevant topics as they pertain to an override? I'll note that the vote passed, so there's little to say on our part maybe tonight, but happy to hear any comments.
How has the process been? I know it was proposed the 5. I don't know if I necessarily agree with this, but the 5-year, $5 million, the process of backing into like the individual year impact
This is a good question.
and what it means, because I wasn't a big fan of just throwing out this arbitrary number, because I know you put a lot of work into year by year and how we got to the 5.7. So has it worked okay, and like how's it been for you so far?
To be honest, we really haven't done any of that work.
Okay.
We've been focusing on fiscal 27 and spooling up our tax impact calculator and all of our educational materials and trying to create all of that this week.
Yeah.
I think that we'll do that. The year one will be 1.167,
Yeah.
which where we're at, because
Yeah.
we're not going to start
Yep.
scrambling around now. I think that's just going to
do
lead
it.
to a disaster.
Yep.
Then we'll take what we have left, divided equally among those 4 years, and that'll be our starting point. And then we'll have to make a decision every single year, up or down, by looking at also what our new growth come in at, right? So there's going to be some play there.
Yep.
So I don't want to say like we're not going to do that work at all,
I know.
but I think we'll have a good understanding with our forecast. I actually was just playing with the forecast yesterday, plugging in kind of that spread out and see where the deficit looks like. I think some of it's going to be play it by ear is a bad way to budget, but a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Seeing where we get to in each. You get to December, you'll know kind of what we're going to be looking at. But it still projects a deficit, but we have other work to do, so maybe we can.
My thought immediately afterwards was, okay, so they've passed a 4.5-year override, and we've stretched the last 2 overrides from 5 years to 6 years. I think we can probably stretch the extra half year out of that as we go.
Well, hopefully, except for that we emptied the school's reserves
Yeah.
to get
Well,
through that.
And BVT is going to go up by at least $238,000
I
next
don't-
year. I mean,
Yeah.
there are absolutely.
Which is why when we had met Saturday, I had mentioned that we had you know, we were about $351,000 to the good. And while that looks like money that we want to take and put towards our schools or the town side of the budget, if you use up that capacity this year, it's gonna really hurt next year when you've got to come up with $283,000 additional for BVT, which is only the seats, not any other increases that come. I mean, I think Mr. Steele did a great job. I mean, they held their budget really, did some
tight.
great work on that budget.
Yeah.
You know, that's not sustainable every single year because things are going to happen.
They can't
that
fire
they-
people every
Right,
year.
right, exactly. So you know, we have to be realistic about that too. So, you know, I think we need to leave something on the table. Especially if the vote is no, right? Then we'll make all the cuts we're supposed to make in fiscal 27, but now you still don't have that money when you hit fiscal 28 and you get the additional impact of BVT. And I'm not blaming BVT. I'm just saying that's
Right.
one of the
Yeah,
realities
yeah.
of the
The
conversation we
reality.
just
Right.
had. You know, when that happens, you won't have anywhere to go but more immediate and
Cuts.
deeper cuts,
Yeah.
and we don't want that, right?
Okay.
So,
Theoretically, we're gonna see the minute savings on the school side because kids wouldn't be attending
Well,
school.
one of the-
But then again,
but one of the things to keep in mind is that it matters where those kids would have fallen in the school system,
Right.
because just because you have less kids doesn't mean you can have less overhead, because there's
Right.
a point at which it doesn't matter, right?
where they are, which grade they're in, they're not going into
Right.
the 8th grade, which is overstuffed anyway, so you.
So and where are the teachers and what are the programs? And I mean, that's beyond what I do. That's a Dr. Cummings thing, but you know, you have to look at that. You could lose, in theory, 100 students and not see any real impact to overhead because of where they fall in the system.
Right.
So you have to keep that in mind as well.
I would say too, we stretched it. We also last year moved 600,000 in the trash program out and used that money to fund operations, and then also the school took 600,000, I believe, in cuts. So we are super lean, and
Yeah.
for the record, pulling a number out of the air for a 5-year override is not something that I'm comfortable with, but it's also not my decision. So.
No.
And my other part caution against that was, yeah, we had extra COVID
say yes or
expenses
no.
that brought it out. So, yeah, hopefully those two things balanced out, and we'll be able to stretch this out a bit more. So
And I'll
we'll see how
also
it goes.
at the point that, I mean, optically, perhaps disastrous, but also legally accurate. Overrides are for a dollar amount, not a year amount.
Yep.
So we're saying 5 million for 5 years, but actually the only thing we're voting on is 5 million.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, we might hopefully we'll make it 5 years. If
we're,
not,
we're,
we'll have.
we're working on some materials to try to, and we're going to do some, well, I guess, listening sessions or whatever you want to call them. But we're trying to work on the simplest, and other towns have done this, so it's not like we're reinventing the wheel, but, you know, explaining to people what the levy limit is. And that you're voting,
Step one.
right,
Good
well, you're
luck.
voting to move the levy limit up by $5 million.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with years, and it really doesn't have anything to do with dollars, because if you don't spend that money, that doesn't
don't
get taxed.
collect
And so
it.
getting people to understand that it's not an instant year one, you know, year one, you're not gonna see a $763 increase on average or whatever. So I mean, I've met with a few people, this week that have come to the office to ask, that don't do computers and things like that. So we've been printing out some, you know, we've been trying to help educate people. But it's been actually really good, because as much as I know how to be a town administrator, it's my first time going through an override from the start, and seeing where the knowledge gap is not necessarily where I think the knowledge gap would be.
Yeah, the
Um,
VOC is
yeah.
incredibly helpful.
Yeah,
You
so
don't know
so
what
we've
they
been
know.
we've been working on that. We've been in touch with other communities that have had successful full overrides. We've gotten their materials. We've been talking to their staff about what went well and what didn't go well, and so we've been really hyper focused on that this week.
One of the things that I've seen online that people are confused about is if we don't pass the override budget at town meeting, does the ballot vote still matter? And yes, absolutely. The ballot vote is up or down.
Right.
Whether or not we take advantage of that is the second vote at town meeting. And there's questions about, okay, do we vote on two completely different budgets or do we just vote on additions?
So we
That
we
kind
were
of
working
stuff.
on that this week too, because there are two different. They're actually not two ways. There's multiple ways to do this.
Yeah.
But we think we are going to follow the example of our 2020 override conversation here. One, because it's laid out very well. It makes perfect sense. So you've got the regular budget and then the contingent budget, which is just the stuff that you would add to the budget if the override passed.
The additional appropriation.
Additional
I think so.
appropriation, right. So one, I think they did a good job in 2020, and two, people are used to that. So, we're gonna try to we'll try to be consistent with that.
Then maybe one other somewhat naive question, like we put like an average cost per single family or whatever the actual terminology was. Like, if I'm thinking of this correctly though, it would be based on your property value.
Correct.
So we, like, when we put out the materials, we sort of
Right.
say, hey, if you fall in this
So,
bracket, it would be.
Yeah, we have two different ways we're doing that. We've got 3 info sheets that break down kind of by your value, just a
what
grid.
you- exactly.
So it's year one, the 1167 number. What does that look
And-
like?
Yep.
The average rolling over 5 years, what does that look like? And what's the total at year 5,
Yep.
right? So we've got those 3 sheets built. And then William was working on today with Amber, our override calculator on the website. And so we've got that pretty much queued up.
Good.
They were running into techie problems that,
Yeah.
Because
I think that's like one thing when people see that, I'm like, that's not going to be the impact to every person,
Right.
right? And it's like,
so
oh,
what it is
thinking
you
around that.
put in your address
Yep.
and it automatically populates your
Oh, no.
your assessed value, and then it gives you year one, then the basically the rolling average, right? So for every year after year one, this is about what you can expect to see, and then it gives the year 5 number. So it actually spits out three different figures. So the two of them were working on it for a good portion of the day, because it seemed like everything you touched then broke something.
Broke somewhere. But the thing is, you take a bunch of goofs like us that have sat here and done this and know the ins and outs of everything, and take that kind of for granted when you're talking to people, and there's just a big hole out there where people that, oh my God, this is going to happen, or you told me it was going to be this, and it was twice that. Well, your house is twice as much as the average.
Yeah. And that's where
all
it's
that
like-
kind of stuff, and people just.
Data
Yep,
is key.
I've had a few of those conversations, but I've also had, some success talking to folks and likening it more to your credit limit on your credit card.
Yeah.
Right, that's what we're doing.
So,
We're raising the
yeah.
credit limit. You don't have to spend it,
Right.
but now you have some wiggle room to do it. It's not a perfect analogy, but once you start with that, people are like, oh, because I was trying. did do some-
Actually, that's good.
I
It's
did
simple
some
analogy.
explaining this week based on the debt ceiling. People don't understand that any better than an override vote, so I was like, "Oh, this is gonna go nowhere.
Yeah.
I gotta tighten this up." But we'll by early next week we'll have things ready to roll. That's our goal. So as we discussed, the number changed a little bit, but it changes on every single thing that we were working on. So we're just working out the bugs and want to push out, correct information. So
Yeah, the credit card thing is great because everybody's gone through that. Unfortunately, you're never gonna, hopefully not gonna go up to your credit card limit,
Right.
but in the end, we will be at the.
right.
We'll be close to it.
Yeah, and we've also been working on some narrative around the tighten your belt conversation. Because the reality is we can tighten our belt and live within our means, but there's an impact to you, the resident.
Yep.
And so that's why you get to have this conversation. You can decide whether you want the impact or not. You can't just say tighten your belt and we'll just keep doing everything that we're doing now for the same amount of money. It's just not going to work.
To that point, what I was going to say is when you show like the cost in dollars for a vote yes,
Yep.
I think it also is important to show the costs and services for a vote no.
Mhm.
And like, so if you're showing how people's taxes would increase over 5 years, I think it's important to also pair that with the projections of the cuts
Yep.
that we would see
Right.
over those 5 years, and
Yep.
make sure that those two sides of the coin are kind of being shown together.
Yeah, yes, I agree. We have been working on that, and I have some data actually got to get to Dr. Cummings so that he can finish building out, his longer range. I mean, he already showed them, and but the numbers have changed a little bit. Anyways, so we're working towards that, and we also been breaking down like the per day, the per month, because that's impactful too. When it's it's $2 a day versus whatever the final number is,
Cup of
those
coffee.
types of things.
Not
So-
even where you get a
Not
cup of
even
coffee for
sometimes
$2.
getting it.
Right. So we're working on some of that just to build that
picky,
narrative,
picky.
just to build the narrative a little bit of what that looks like. And it's tough because you're trying to do it on, one sheet. You want to be able to put something in front of somebody.
You
So
don't
we have like 10 one sheets that kind of tell a different part of the story, so that we can start, rolling that out. And so anyways, we've been working on it. It's just not 100%
The other
where
thing
we
is
want to
get
be.
people to use the ClearGov more when they're doing their budgets, because I sit back and kind of think, I feel like an old fuddy-duddy here now, but like, when I started on the fire department, auxiliary guys were lucky to get a new pair of those heavy orange rubber gloves.
Yeah.
A used aluminum helmet that most of them didn't even say Grafton Fire on, and somebody's cast-off coat, and a pair of boots that on a nice dry summer day would keep your feet dry. Today, you take that same person and you start them on the auxiliary, it costs you $3,000
Right.
for a new set of turnout gear before you put any Scott Air Packs or any of that crap on them. So for people to, this isn't your father's Oldsmobile anymore.
Right.
It costs a lot of money to run this town.
Right. Yep.
So when
and-
they go through and see all of the stuff that they're getting,
Right.
we can,
And-
too bad Mark wasn't here, but we won't hear of people saying, you don't go through the budgets anymore.
That's a fair point.
Great. Motion to adjourn.
So, second.
Can I have a member
I
of the
can't- I
committee
can't
actually
actually
make that motion?
Motion to adjourn.
It was a joke, but it
Second.
took off.
You-
portion.
It worked for you.
It is-
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It was you.
he apportioned that, wasn't it?
Apportionment.
All right, because Heather's online, we'll do roll call, not to call you out, ma'am. Heather?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Samir?
I
Skip?
Aye.
Angelina?
Aye.
Kyle?
Aye.
Victoria's aye. I'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Thanks, Craft, and we are adjourned.